Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about 2009 Korean film Woochi, which comes with various subtitles. Goblin Wizard, which is the one I saw it under, but also Demon Slayer and Taoist Wizard. And the film begins with the archgod setting out to imprison all of the goblins in the world with the aid of his magic flute. I assume in the version of the film called Demon Slayer they use the term demons rather than goblins. Whichever thing you call them, though, either these goblins or demons, whatever they are, they appear as animal-headed humanoids with superhuman strength and speed. They're bad news. So trying to imprison them, good idea. Unfortunately, due to the incompetence of some lesser servitor gods, the attempt fails. The archgod's magic flute is lost, and the archgod vanishes, overcome by the collective evil of all the goblins. Subsequent to that, the said servitor gods, incompetent though they are, seek out wizards to help them imprison the goblins on an individual basis, one by one, while also trying to find the flute and keep it out of goblin hands. And one of the wizards they meet has an apprentice. The apprentice is named Woochi, and he's young, brash, and very much in love with using his powers for his own entertainment and aggrandizement. The servitor gods are not much impressed, it must be said. 500 years later, though, in modern-day Korea, Woochi is pretty much their last best hope for protecting the world from the goblin menace. The big unresolved question, of course, is can this shiftless larrikin become the hero that they and we all need? So this is a Korean film, so unless you speak this language, you're going to need to fire up the subtitles to watch it. I don't know if some people do struggle with subtitles, but I think if you're in the mood for a light-hearted fantasy action romp, it's worth the effort for you to take on the subtitles to watch this film. I think it works well. I certainly know I enjoyed it. So let's talk about why that is. So, when we first meet Woochi, he is a smug, self-satisfied jerk, much more interested in indulging himself with his powers than in doing anything constructive or helpful with them. Certainly, he's not the kind of person to risk himself for the benefit of others. But that's, of course, exactly the kind of person he has to become over the course of this movie. Now, callow youth who grows into a hero is not exactly a terribly novel character arc, especially for an action film's protagonist. From Luke Skywalker to Simba the Lion King to Peter Parker, coming to realise that with great power comes great responsibility, narrative media is full of brash boys, and it's almost always boys, of course, who must become better men. But a character arc doesn't have to be wildly experimental or original to be executed well, and I think this film does a good job of portraying Woochi's path to being the hero that we need to get the job done. And at least partly that's because the movie recognised that his learning to care about more than his own entertainment and pleasure doesn't mean he has to become po-faced and boring. He grows more altruistic, but he's still the same larrikin-esque troublemaker at heart, and I liked that about it. It felt like a real progression of the character. He's still a fun-loving, irreverent guy, but he's not completely self-centered about it anymore. I think it works well. Secondly, we've got the action sequences. This is a supernatural martial arts action film, which is to say that it's basically a superhero movie. The characters involved in the action sequences all, at the very least, have superhuman strength, speed, and skill. Many of them have outright magical powers that they can call upon. That gives a huge amount of scope for extravagant, over-the-top action sequences, and the filmmakers have absolutely seized that opportunity and made the most of it. The fights and other action scenes are full of spectacle and packed with impressive stunt work. Are they remotely realistic or plausible in a real-world context? Of course they aren't. But they're not meant to be, any more than are the action sequences in Western superhero films. If you enjoyed the action in the latest Marvel blockbuster, and in particular, if you enjoyed Shang-Chi, then you should enjoy the action that you see here as well. It's well-executed superhero action. Finally, let's talk about comedy, because this is a film that attempts to be funny, and comedy can be difficult to get right. Not everyone finds the same things funny, and humour doesn't always translate across different cultures, even cultures that basically share a language. For example, take Shakespearean English. It's Shakespeare was writing in English we can pretty much understand it. Some of the word use is archaic by our standards, but the words are words we recognise on the whole. But from recreating 16th century accents in recent years, we now know that there are puns in Shakespeare's plays that went unnoticed for decades because of the change in pronunciation. Even over shorter periods, there can be cultural shifts that dramatically alter what is considered funny. I watched plenty of films from the latter half of the 20th century which have ostensibly comedic scenes that, to my more modern eyes, are simply offensive in their racism, sexism, or homophobia. Now, Woochi is more recent than any of those alternative comparisons, but it is from a different culture with a different language. It's going to draw on different cultural reference points and expectations for its humour, and any wordplay, in the script is at risk of being literally lost in translation. A pun that works in English does not necessarily work in Korean, and vice versa. So humour can be lost simply because of the change of language. Despite those challenges, I found myself frequently chuckling at the jokes and humour in this movie. I suspect that the people behind the script did spend some time thinking about what kinds of humour tend to work well across cultural boundaries, and played to those, because that improves your appeal worldwide, and it's a smart play. So I feel like, this is a film that, where it's trying to be funny, it succeeds, even to my, Anglosphere eyes, without any real understanding of Korean culture or references. The movie manages to be funny. I don't know if it's funnier to Korean audiences. It might be, but it's funny enough, even with subtitles, in my opinion. So there you go, Woochi. It's a fun Korean superhero film, basically. Worth a look if superhero films are up your alley and you're willing to try reading a few subtitles. Next time, we're going back to the 80s for some science fiction schlock. 1989 Rocky in Space type film, Arena. But that, as I said, will be next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.